Mr. President, I'd like now to highlight an important milestone. This coming Saturday, December 21st, will mark the 6th anniversary of the First Step Act becoming law. That moment resulted from overwhelming bipartisan majorities in the House and Senate coming together to pass landmark criminal justice reform. I was honored to be the lead Democrat sponsor of this legislation, along with the lead Republican sponsor, Senator Chuck Grassley. Senators Cory Booker and Mike Lee joined us. The First Step Act acknowledges the obvious. The vast majority of people who are incarcerated will someday be released, so we must prepare them to successfully return to their communities. In the last 6 years, this law has safely and effectively reduced populations in overcrowded federal prisons, reuniting families and revitalizing communities. The First Step Act looked toward the future by providing opportunities for the incarcerated people to reenter society successfully. It helped to reform harsh drug sentencing laws of the past and remedy their effects. I authored bipartisan legislation, the Fair Sentencing Act of 2010, reducing the unjust 100-to-1 sentencing disparity between crack powder, cocaine offenses. Under the First Step Act, the Fair Sentencing Act's reforms were made retroactive, allowing those who still serve sentences imposed before the change in law to be resentenced. I am thankful for the tireless efforts of many dedicated advocates and families who never gave up hope that this bill would become the law. Since the passage of the First Step Act 6 years ago, I've met with many Americans who've successfully returned home because of this historic legislation. The First Step Act has been a tremendous success. Of more than 40,000 people released under this law through January of this year, only 9.7% have been rearrested or returned to custody. Compare that to the Bureau of Prisons' overall recidivism rate of 45%, 5 times that number. Unfortunately, some elected officials are now calling for a return to the punitive policies of the past, despite the success of the First Step Act. Here's the reality. We all deserve to live free from crime, but the war on drugs, with its inflexible mandatory minimums, did not make communities safer. Instead, the so-called war on drugs filled the prisons with young, mostly African-American men, and at the same time, the price of illegal drugs went down and the use of illegal drugs went up. The strategy didn't work. The First Step Act shows that we can do more than be just tough on crime. We can be once and for all smart on crime and achieve accountability without excessive punishment and incarceration. It is our job in Congress to thoughtfully respond to the enduring crisis of substance abuse in America. We should provide more opportunities for those who are incarcerated to re-enter society successfully, reunite with their families, and contribute to their communities. And we need to build on the bipartisan success of the First Step Act and work together to craft new policies to reduce crime in America. 6 years ago, the First Step Act was signed into law by President Donald Trump during his first term in office. My lead Republican sponsor, Chuck Grassley, was chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. With Donald Trump returning to the White House and Senator Grassley returning as chair of the Judiciary Committee, we have the opportunity to build on the success of the First Step Act. 6 years ago, we wrote the blueprint for reimagining rehabilitation and protecting public safety. We know that it works. We must remember that passing this law was just the first step in a long journey toward rethinking rehab and reversing failed approaches. Today, as I reflect on what we've achieved by correcting our past wrongs and investing in the power of second chances, I also recognize that more must be done to make our justice system fair and to keep America safe. We should learn from the experiences of individuals who've been incarcerated under misguided policies and are now seeking to reform the criminal justice system for the future. As we celebrate this anniversary, I'll continue to work with my colleagues to reform outdated sentencing laws and improve conditions of confinement and rehabilitation within our federal prison system. Mr. President, I have 3 requests for committees to meet during today's session of the Senate. They have the approval of the majority and minority leaders.
Duly noted.
I yield the floor. Suggest the absence of a quorum.